It is it is a major humanitarian disaster and a major blow to our faith in mankind, actually. Terror. On the Israeli side, since the Holocaust, there hasn't been a time of such powerlessness, such a sense of mass killing, when one of the hope for goals of the state of Israel was to provide security for the Jewish people. So to remember that humans on all sides are involved, to rise above the natural sense of revenge and to work. Am I still coming across, Clint? Because on my screen I'm freezing. Am I okay on yours?
You froze a little bit there. I think you're coming through now, though. You're coming through now
Okay.
well. And
So
yeah, obviously.
then move on. Let me move on to the second point.
Yes,
The
please.
second point on my thoughts on this is the recognition that this is not the usual something else. This is a battle on whether Israel has the right to exist. It's a battle based on a certain extreme Islamic ideology, and in the process, terror is used as a method of striking fear so that thousands suffer and millions fear. And this is, you would know this because the US had so much to do with Al Qaeda and ISIS. This is our version of ISIS. And here the problem is that when you're dealing with something that really is an incarnation of evil, and I think there's no other way to describe the murderous, barbarous acts that took place. When you fight evil, you don't negotiate with evil, you have to fight it. So that raises the great challenge of how to go about dealing with that. And the challenge of how does one deal with a population of millions that's controlled by an ideologically minded leadership that supports terror. I don't want to be the only one talking. I want to give you a chance to respond. So I do have more things I want to say, but let me see how you want to interact with what I just said.
Well, I wonder, like Pope Francis, whom you know and I know you've spent time with and you respect a lot. He published the following on X, formerly Twitter. He says humanitarian law is to be respected, especially in Gaza. Please let no more innocent blood be shed, neither in the Holy Land, nor in Ukraine, nor in any other place. Enough. Wars are always a defeat, always. I wonder, I don't want you to respond directly to that, although you can. But my question would be, what role do you believe religious leaders have in what's happening in Israel right now?
Question. One question is the statement and the view less certain about, and this is a man for whom I have great respect, is the war. There's never room for war or weapons bests, you have to. So this is a doctrine that the church has been supporting for quite some time, and many people have called the church out also on its position on Ukraine, which has been, shall we say, lukewarm and not fully calling the perpetrator by name. And certainly in this case, there's a lot of goodwill, but I ask myself if there isn't some naivete also in that. So I go with the Pope halfway. I don't think the Pope recognizes the extremity of the danger, of the evil, and of the threat to Israel, and ultimately to the entire world through the rise of such ideology. What role do religious leaders have to play? I'll say the following. I've been involved in various peace work between to be participating in this. One of my partners and one of the members of the Elijah Board of World Religious Leaders that I moderate, which is a high-level group of religious leaders that comes together for purposes of mutual understanding and friendship, but also addresses some concrete issues politically. One of my friends, Rabbi Michael Melchior, has spent decades working with Hamas, and as far as I can see now, to no avail. The ideology room for religious leaders. I think religious leaders have to turn to their community and to give them strength. To the event in Gaza. I haven't got it published. Just as we were preparing for this particular talk, I thought, oh, if there's someone from Salt Lake Tribune or from Deseret who's watching it, I'd be very happy to be in touch with them in order to get it published. I know Utah has such a close connection to Israel and to Jerusalem. I would love for this voice to come across through Utah. But that's simply one particular example of the broader phenomenon. Religious leaders, your question assumes they're turning outwards, but at this moment, they also have to turn inwards and give people the hope, the vision, and the courage in what really is a fight that's not going to be finished overnight.
Well, we can certainly help with the Deseret News and Salt Lake Tribune connection, so plan on that. What else? As you think about this, and since it's happened, what would you have us know that maybe we're not thinking about over here in the United States?
I think you do very well in the United States. Of all countries, the United States is doing the best. Your president is on his way. Israel, on his way to visit Israel as a sign of solidarity. He really gets it. He understands the threat to Israel's existence. He understands the need to show unflinching support. He understands the need to protect humanitarian values. He understands that there's the fear that this could escalate into a broader Middle Eastern and eventually global situation. He's doing what he can to do that. So if you're following your president, then you probably have a very good angle. Now, maybe not all people in Utah follow your president, because I realize there's politics always involved and we're coming up with elections one to another. So I think the one thing I would want people to understand is that this is no longer a political battle. Maybe I should add something about my close friend, recently appointed Cardinal, Pier Battista Pizzaballa. Just 2 weeks ago, just at the end of September, he was appointed Cardinal in the most recent consistory. He made the point, and I totally agree with it in an interview, that this is increasingly becoming a religious battle and not a political battle. That's one thing to be in mind. You said the role of religious leaders. He said he'd offer himself in exchange for children. So he would be taken hostage instead of them. Of course, it's a beautiful expression of self-sacrifice, but no one on the other side would take it. But that's one way that religious leaders can put forth a voice of humanization, because this whole situation sees increasingly a view of dehumanization. They're acting in a dehumanized way. And we, Israelis, to a certain extent, are also dehumanizing, by how we view the other side as animals. And it's okay that they're acting barbarously, but not all 2 million people in Gaza are acting in that way. And therefore, there is this fear of dehumanization. And therefore, I think one of the roles and responsibilities of religious leaders is to maintain the human face of the other in compassion, even when you fight war. In other words, even when you have to go to war, you have to go to war out of compassion. And I think that's the role of religious leaders, how to not make it barbaric, how to not make it vengeful, but to do the necessary, like the Bhagavad Gita teaches. You do your responsibility, but you do it with a view to the higher goals, but you don't let barbarism and vengeance and lower feelings come through. Ultimately, there has to be compassion and recognition of the humanity of the other, even in the midst of war.
What does a religious battle look like compared to a political battle from your perspective and as you're shaping up and thinking about this?
That's such an important question, Clint. I think the one important difference is whether you see horizons of hope at the other end. In a political battle, you can see horizons of hope. You know that eventually there'll be a battle, and then you'll sit down, you have peace talks, and the border will go here, the border will go there, people will go here, people will go there, the resources that were disputed will be divided this way or the other. When it's a religious battle and it's a zero-sum game, and you are threatened for your existence, then there's no horizons of hope. And you can get rid of the current people occupying leadership positions, what if that ideology remains in place and takes hold? So a religious battle is much harder because you have to uproot. And that's precisely why you have to maintain humanity, because ultimately a religious battle involves education, reaching the hearts of the other and humanizing them and transforming them. Because if all we do is use force, that force is going to come back at us. So it's a very fine balance between uprooting the evil and yet also uprooting it through wisdom and through compassion. For that, you need good leaders and good teachers. And that's part of the role of religious leaders as well.
Well, I think when a lot of people
Am I making sense? Tell me.
Absolutely, you are, and it makes sense to me. I think when a lot of people hear the phrase "a religious battle," they get really nervous. Like this could be like the war to end all wars. Like if this isn't just about borders or, your typical political issues that are faced in wars like this. How bad could this get, and how do we, from your perspective, how does this end in the best way possible?
I don't have a perspective. I look to God. Some people have scriptures, and those scriptures predict, an Armageddon, and therefore people are all perpetually waiting for some huge blow up. It's in our scriptures as well. I don't look at things that way. So I don't have a perspective other than looking to see how we can evolve things. Yes, I do have metaphysical beliefs like the coming of Messiah and a great teacher and or someone who brings peace. Many rabbis are saying these things are so horrendous that they're a sign that Messiah is coming. Amen. May they be right. Who am I to have an opinion one way or the other? How do I see this emerging? I would say, as one Hindu religious leader told me today when we were discussing the situation, you first go in, you first get rid of them, and then you do everything you go towards creating peace. So when the balances shift, when the powers are realigned, and when there are other stakeholders, then you can start discussing peace after this cancerous growth has been uprooted. But it first has to be uprooted.
I think it would be useful for our audience in our community to understand what the Elijah Interfaith Institute is, and the fact that you bring so many religious leaders from all different religions from around the world together, and how that might be used or not used as some sort of platform here.
Yeah, well, Clint, it's a chance for me to say thank you to you again for this wonderful interview that we did just a year ago. And with, I think tens of thousands of views that it got that introduced my work to other people, including the work of the then about to be pilgrimage to Ukraine that we did with the Archbishop of Canterbury and many other top religious leaders, which leaders can relate to crisis situation in the past quarter of a century. I have been moderating a high-level group of world religious representing the church that many of the listeners to this conversation will be affiliated with. And modeling of sharing of wisdom and how religious leaders can offer an alternative and through their deep bonds show the world that what we are seeing now is not the necessity. In other words, you just said that the reality of war, religiously based war, is scary. It is scary. The antidote is not to ignore it. The antidote is actually to set up a visible alternative that can be emulated and serve as a model. And that's what I do. So what I do is not, you know, preach war amongst the extremes. That is a necessity of the moment. What I do is bring together world religious leaders to model friendship, sharing of wisdom, mutual inspiration, mutual growth so that the religions grow. And we have a phenomenal track record. We had actually one meeting in Salt Lake City many years back. We just held in Chicago in August our 11th biannual meeting. And I think we have a beautiful track record of showing how top religious leaders worldwide can show what is an alternative. So the day after, when this is over, we need to set in new paradigms. And those paradigms are paradigms towards which I'm working. Did I address your question?
Yes, you did. I will say that we're having a bit of a technical issue. I think it might be just like sporadic internet where you are or where we are. I think what we should do is maybe we stop here and we go in depth a bit more in the coming days, my friend, and talk about this issue where we might be able to get a better internet connection, because there are some times where you cut out for a good amount of time here. And so
hold on 1 second then. Just before we do that,
yeah,
let me give one last chance. And I wasn't aware of the fact that I give this one last chance. Set up a hotspot here. Okay, I've just changed networks. Tell me if this is more stable so we can continue talking, and if not, we'll do what you're suggesting. Am I more stable now?
you're more stable for me, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you're a rock of stability for me, so obviously it's reciprocal, Clint. So yeah, let's I think we can probably try talking now, because I've moved from the Wi-Fi network I was on to another one, and maybe that'll solve the problem. If I'm still stable, then I think we can continue talking.
Yeah, could you tell us again about like the Salt Lake City and the Utah connection, and the overall message there, and probably like if you wouldn't mind actually just going back on your previous answer, there were some times there where you cut out.
Okay, well, Utah is just a lot of friends that I've built there over the years, because of Utah itself sees itself related to Zion, sees itself in Zion. So Zion and Jerusalem. I've been moving forward with well, actually, it's a vision. It's a different vision. I'll talk about you in a second. What I was saying earlier, when you were asking about the Elijah Board of World Religious Leaders, I contextualized it in relation to the current situation by saying the following. You had said that the prospects of religious warfare are scary, to which I agree. And you asked the question of what does the next day look like? And I said, beyond a political situation, what we need is modeling of friendship between religions as the alternative to the battle between religions. And what I do in my life's vocation is to model that by bringing together high-level world religious leaders for friendship, for sharing wisdom, for demonstrating presence, for showing solidarity, for offering religions a new way forward together through mutual inspiration and collaboration that isn't only practical, but spiritually derived from the roots of their faith. Did that come across okay?
Yes, absolutely. And I wonder, it might be useful for you to kind of give us a bit of a history lesson as to what led to this. I mean, there's obviously absolutely no justification for what happened and what Hamas did, of course. But how did we get here? And even prior to these events that are just horrific, and terrorism and all of the things that you mentioned, can you give us some sort of, how did we end up here? Because I don't think that Utah or people in the United States really would understand that as much as you, who have lived this.
Okay, brief pointers. The rise of a global movement of Islamism, the expression of which are the Muslim Brotherhood, of which Hamas is a branch, going back to the 80s. Battles with Hamas that were partially successful. Then, with the creation of the Palestinian autonomy, those who opposed the peace arrangement with Israel started blowing up buses. That's Hamas. Then an ongoing tension and lack of harmony between the politically minded PLO and the Hamas that are religiously based in their conflict, eventually leading to a situation of a takeover of Hamas of Gaza, and then Gaza becoming a hub for terror. So there's been a gradual buildup through Israel's disengagement from Gaza of Gaza becoming a launching pad of missile attacks and periodic attacks on Israel that led to cycles of violence. Hamas's goal is to derail peace processes as part of its ideology. And now, given the fact that under your president's leadership, there's been a coming together of Israel and Saudi Arabia towards a peace goal, Hamas wanted to sabotage that. And this attack, one of its goals is to sabotage that. The second goal is to release Palestinian prisoners, because the head of Hamas is a former Palestinian prisoner who feels a commitment to releasing the rest. And the final goal is trying to humiliate Israel and to demonstrate on behalf of Iran, because Hamas is an Iran proxy, even though Iran is Shia and Hamas is Sunni, but Hamas is like Hezbollah is in Iran, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza are Iran proxies, trying to raise the level to destabilize Israel towards its ultimate destruction, which is part of the ideology of these groups. So it's an ongoing process supported by Iran on the one hand, internal Palestinian tensions on the other, and opposition to peace processes.
You said the United States has been the best country on this issue since it happened, and the President Biden is heading Israel's way, I believe, as we speak. I wonder how you view other nations and their response to this. I mean, you mentioned Iran, and kind of their ties to Hamas and what's happening there. But how do you think that? Have you been surprised? Maybe I'll phrase it this way: have you been surprised by how other countries and other nations have responded and reacted to what happened?
No, because most of the world reacted with horror, with great support. Germany, for one, Germany's Chancellor Scholz was in Israel today. There's been total support from Germany. Europeans were, well, there's a sentiment basically that, when the underdog receives a lot of support, so we were the victims who received support. That sentiment is about to turn, because the more Israel is engaged in this battle, the Palestinians suffer. The more they suffer, they're the underdogs. The sympathy goes there. Israel has very limited credit in terms of international opinion. Then the rest plays out politically. Putin, he has his gains in Ukraine, so he won't condemn Hamas. Iran supports it. China supports Iran. Everything plays out according to the global situation of geopolitics. There hasn't really been any meaningful surprise here. No one's come through or not come through beyond what's expected, as far as I can see.
Finally, like, if you were to talk to the leaders who are making these decisions on all sides of what's happening here, what message would you have if you had them all in a room right now? What message would you have for them today?
It's a very difficult question, A, because I don't usually get into these situations, B, because they won't listen to me. But assuming that the question is just a framing for what big message do I have, I think the biggest message is humanization and compassion, even in the midst of war. Because if the war is necessary, dehumanization is not necessary, and global labeling of others is not necessary, and lack of feeling for the other is not necessary. People say our hearts are so full of suffering, we don't have room for the other. Well, the heart has to expand also to be aware of the suffering of others, even if it's inevitable. If we can all see each other as humans, even before we see each other as religious personalities, there's a chance our common humanity might allow us to overcome this. So actually, at this moment, common humanity is probably a stronger card to play than religious leadership and its promise for peace and understanding.
Thank you again so much for joining us, my friend, and we will push out everything you're doing on this show and to our community, and how people can get engaged with the Elijah Interfaith Institute, things you're doing with the CC, things like this. Thank you so much.
I don't think we had a chance to talk about Assisi. Do you want me to give a 60-second plug?
Yeah. Talk about Assisi, because what you're doing there is beautiful.
So thank you for recognizing this. This might have come up already in last year's interview. I spoke about modeling of friendship. So actually, looking right now at the city affiliated with St. Francis of Assisi, a city that defines itself as City of Peace, we're looking at creating there a spiritual center, which is like a museum for friendship across religions and understanding the spiritual life of the other. And riding on the image of St. Francis of Assisi, it promises to be a place where mass education of alternative modeling of everything we stand for, all the best in religion, all the vision that religions can bring can come to the world. There are very few in the entire United States. There's no interreligious museum, and globally there's only 2 or 3. There isn't a museum devoted to understanding spirituality as a way of common growth and to friendship across religions. And if we spoke about the horror of religious warfare and the alternative modeling, this museum in Assisi is set to institutionalize that, quite in addition to everything else we're doing. And as you know, Clint, I'm on my way to the States, God willing, if I can travel in a couple of weeks. If you think that there's enough of a core group amongst your listeners who would want to hear more about it and to get involved, it would be a wonderful opportunity for me to return to one of my favorite, if not my favorite place in the United States.
For sure. And yeah, like I said, we'll make sure that we spread the word there. And we'd love to host you as always, my friend. And I just want you to know as we wrap this thing up, like, hey, you have our support. We're sending our prayers, our love to you. Anything you need, please let us know. And please stay safe, my friend.
Pray, and more pray. I mean, if an Assisi is going to be a center for prayer across religions, that means that I really, or my organization really, we really believe in the power of prayer of all religions and the power of prayer of all religions together. And in these impossibly hard moments, prayer really is the key. So quite apart from public relations and understanding the situation and everything else we've spoken about, what we need is power of prayer for good to prevail over evil, for peace to come, for humanity to open its heart and to grow to a higher place of compassion. And if I have an opportunity to come to Salt Lake and to spread the message further, it will be a joy.
You have our prayers. You have my prayers. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Clint. Thank you for the time to be able to share with you and with the audience that's been watching.
Thank you.
Shalom. Shalom.
Shalom.